What's up, everyone? Today we have Miss Kimberly Bennett. She's from the Homeschooling Counseling Network. What an amazing conversation. She's a homeschooling mom. She has background in public education. Um, she was a licensed therapist. I mean, we touched on so many different things. She shows us some amazing resource. I think it was an amazing conversation. Beth, what do you have on this one?
Yes, it was so good. I really liked how she talked about how to figure out and navigate your kids' feelings, especially when they're hitting puberty, and then also how to take care of your mental health as a parent.
Yep.
Really important stuff, and I think it's really vital for homeschooling families.
Yep, I had a great time talking with her. So we'll see you guys inside. What's up, everyone? Today we're blessed with Miss Kimberly. Now, she is, how would you describe yourself? The founder of HCN? What? Give us the background. Give us the background of what you are, how you got there, and everything about you.
Sure. Well, I've worn many hats throughout my life, but I am the founder and the CEO of the Homeschool Counseling Network. We're a free advocacy and resource website where we connect homeschool families with allied health, mental health coaching, and consulting professionals who understand the world of homeschooling and who are equipped. We help equip them, by the way. I'll talk more about that in the training we offer later on to serve homeschool families. We're helping kind of bridge that lack of care that homeschool families typically face because we're a very underserved population. But
Um,
about me, well, I'm a licensed professional counselor of over 20 years, and I've been a homeschool mom for the past 7. I've worked in a variety of environments from started my career actually in juvenile justice, and then I left there to go work in public education for a couple of years because I loved my kids, but I thought, okay, I need to get to them before they get here. So I went and became a middle school guidance counselor. So I do have a background in public education too. And I did that for a couple of years until the recession hit. And being support personnel, we're usually the first ones on the chopping block. So that's when I'm like, okay, it's time to start a private practice. So I launched my own private practice back in Georgia and was pretty successful by year 3, had 2 locations. And then we finally were able to start our family. We're a little bit late to the game. And the day we learned we're having a boy is also the day my husband's like, my husband works for Lockheed Martin. And he's like, oh, and we're relocating to Texas. I'm like, oh, okay. So I closed a private practice, had a preemie baby, relocated to Texas from Georgia, and was very fortunate that when I saw that beautiful face, I got to stay home for a little. And if you'd asked me if I was going to be a homeschool mom, I would have said, no, that's not on my radar. I'm a public school kid. My husband's a public school kid. We live in a great school district. He's going to go to public school. We know life kind of happens when you're busy making plans.
yep.
So it turned out with our preemie, he had a little bit of developmental delays, which is pretty common among
Uh-huh.
preemies. But also what coincides with that are learning challenges. And it's kind of funny. I will speak from faith because even though my network is secular, I'm a woman of faith. So everything that I do is through that lens. So it's kind of funny when I really didn't think I was going to be a homeschool parent. God kept putting homeschool parents in my path. I would run into them at the
Mm.
grocery store and at the library. And the one I really connected with was in our son's occupational therapy office. We started OT and PT very early to help with some of those developmental delays, which if I hadn't have been home as a homeschool parent, I probably would have missed them, right?
Mm.
So I remember thinking, waiting for my son for therapy, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how she does that. How can anyone do that? There's no way I could do that. Kind of funny. Do it now. But, she let me ask her questions and she let me ask her anything. And that's the thing about our community. We can make a lesson out of anything and you can ask us anything and we will answer you. So she just poured into me every week for about 2 years because we were in therapy a long time. And then I just met others. And you know what? I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. Total leap of faith. So here I am, a homeschool parent.
I love
That's
it. Now,
amazing.
when you made that decision, was your husband supporting you? Were you kind of talking with him throughout those 2 years, bouncing it off? What did that look like?
It was interesting at first because our son did attend a little private pre-K and a private kinder, but with his first diagnosis that we received, which was developmental coordination disorder, also known as dyspraxia, I kind of knew just from my professional background and my personal background working in public education and my background in mental health, I knew that other learning disabilities were most likely going to coincide with that. They just tend to kind of co-occur. They're comorbid. So I was like, okay, I know he's probably not going to get the level of care and services that we're going to need in public education. I really knew it wasn't going to happen. I'm not knocking public education. I am an advocate for anyone educating their child the way they see fit, if that
Yes,
makes
ma'am.
sense.
Yes, ma'am.
But for us, I just knew. So at first he was like, "You want to do what?" So he's like, I don't know about this. I'm like, well, okay. So like anything else, we have a really strong marriage. You have to have your partner on board for that first. Um, we had to talk about it. We had to see, what that would look like. And he trusted me pretty inherently. And now he's full bore with it. He's the president of my nonprofit. He's like, absolutely. He's like, usually when he knows me long enough, because we met in high school, didn't get married till our mid-20s, had a child late 30s. We're not impulsive people. So he knows this since I'm not impulsive. If I set my mind to something, it's probably going to happen because I'm going to see it through.
I love it.
That's kind of the way homeschool parents are too. When we get it set in our mind to do something, you've got two choices. Either get on board with us or just get out of the way.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Now, can you go a little deeper because for our audience is homeschooling parents, but maybe we'll come across somebody who's considering homeschooling. How do you open that door with your partner, and how do you keep it from being a fight? Like if one doesn't do it, how do you open the door with your partner and say, "Hey, this is something I may want to do. Let's look into this together and see the pros and cons of it." And that way, you're not doing what you're attacking. Your partner say, "Hey, we're only doing this," But how do you suggest that parents open that door?
Sure. Well, I would say you have to, a marriage is between two people. And it
Yes.
starts. Now, I'm not a marital therapist, and I am retired, by the way. I have not provided direct care service in a long time. But if you're just talking about a general conversation, you need to have your evidence there. Have your evidence there. And as I fall back on that, you can lure more bees with honey than you ever can with vinegar, which is true. It doesn't have to be a fight. It's not so much about what we say, but it is how we say it.
Yep.
And if that's a communication issue with your partner, then that might be something a little bit deeper than just a discussion of homeschooling. And that's where outside referrals and resources will come in. But one thing I'm going to tell you to not do, you don't go outside of your marriage and pull someone else in to be your
I don't.
advocate.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, that is between whether that's a friend, whether that's a family member.
No.
You respect, we call that triangulation in
Yeah.
therapy. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in other words, or as my kids would say it back in the day when I worked in JV Hall was just playing mama against daddy. No, we don't do that either. No, you go to your partner first. That's
Mm-hmm.
respect, and that's
Yep.
the foundation of what a healthy partnership is. But start with your research. The best place to go to if you want to learn about the outcomes of homeschoolers and what the data shows, because the data is there. The National Home Education Research Institute. Sorry, I had a blank moment for there.
Oh,
NERI from Dr. Brian Ray. No one else is studying us, right? But Dr. Brian Ray and NERI have been studying us for almost 40 years. The data is there. It's kind of hard to argue with data.
oh, it is. And I love what you said about that too, because when it comes to homeschooling, a lot of times the families, you feel like you're on this mission kind of by yourself. And it might be easy for a mom or a dad to go to their friend and, hey, vent a little bit, but it's super important that you don't do that because you guys are a unit as a whole and you have to keep that unit together and you have to figure out your differences between each other and not bring in other people. That's something I saw my parents did really well because, most of my family didn't support my mom's decision. My dad was like, "Hey, this is what you want to do. I'm all in. I want you to do what you want to do." But everyone else wasn't, and it would have been easy for her to, or for my dad to go out and find other people to complain to when he's having to work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, to provide for us. But instead, he stayed very in the bubble, stayed with my mom. If anyone ever doubted anything she was doing, he's the first person to speak up for her. So I think what you're saying there holds a lot of truth. Can you kind of tell us what inspired you to create the Homeschooling Counseling Network? What led to you saying, "Hey, I want to create this resource hub. I want to create this website"? What all started it?
Well, no, it's kind of funny. We were homeschoolers pre-pandemic. And when you're that one friend, and you'll be the first to know you're a homeschooler, graduated, you moved on, your professional life now. If you knew anything about what pandemic schooling and the quote homeschooling during the pandemic looked like, that is not homeschooling, not even close. That is panic schooling and crisis schooling. We did the best we could with what we knew at the time. But when you're the one friend I was the one friend in our group who's the homeschooler. I've won over a few since then who is the homeschooler in the group, right? But I'm also a therapist. So that means you're the one that everyone reaches out to and goes, oh no, what do we do?
Help, please.
You kind of involuntarily or accidentally become an ambassador. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, sure, ask me anything. But first, let's remove the panic from it because that doesn't serve anyone ever, ever. But I started a blog. I started answering, over the years when we moved from Georgia to Texas after our son was born, we didn't have any community out here. So I started, where do you find community? Meetup and moms groups and play dates and church and things like that. That's where I found my community. So I built kind of a community online on Facebook over a while. And I started getting everyone asking me questions. These were also fellow educators, some school psychologists who were friends of mine who are like, I know we're homeschooling, what it would do. So I started putting all of that information into a blog. That was my first blog. It was called It's Only Homeschooling because I had an only child and it was kind of punny, as we say in our house. I was like, you don't have to panic. It's only homeschooling. It's really not cancer. It's very doable and it's a lot easier than you think once you change your mindset. So I put all that in a blog. Well, my blog caught the attention of a really, really dear friend at the HSLDA. Her name is Natalie Mack. Let me give her a shout out because she's the founder of the Military Homeschoolers Association. Well, this was prior to her founding that, but she's also a therapist. She's retired. She reached out to me and she's like, oh, you're a therapist and you're a homeschooler. Do you provide services? I'm like, oh, no, I'm retired. I'm still licensed because I worked too hard to get it the first time. And if I ever needed to go back to work, it's easier to go back and do what you know. So keep it current. But I said, no, let me see if I can help you find providers who do. There is where I went out, created a list, reached out to a few providers, and I just created kind of an Excel spreadsheet. And I put it on my website and I thought nothing about it. Well, then I got feedback that the providers I had listed, nothing against these providers at the time, they didn't really understand our world. And if you're going to come into our world and work with us, you need to understanding that unschooling is absolutely a valid method of schooling, if you will. I hate to use that term method loosely, but it's the very unstructured approach, but it's still no less valid. Charlotte Mason is out there. You need to understand the types, the styles, our motivations. You need to challenge stereotypes. You need to be educated about the population you want to work with. And any healthcare or mental health profession, that's just cultural competency. So when I found out that providers were, of course, wanting to expand their caseload, everybody's got to make a living, right? But not at the expense of the population you're wanting to serve. I fell back on what I know best, which is what I was doing in my private practice before I closed it. I created a training. And it's just the basics of working with us, who we are, how the beautiful tapestry, because we are very diverse with all types of subpopulations and subcommunities within our population. And we're exploding, right? So I created that to just kind of give the bare bones information that you need if you want to work with us. I put that into a training. I created a new website, Homeschool Counseling Network. And because I've done private practice before and I don't want to do it again, I decided, okay, maybe I'll do a nonprofit. Natalie's like, you should do a nonprofit. It's great. So like most of the things that I've done in my life, I tend to kind of build the plane while flying it. I did hire a nonprofit coach and I founded the Homeschool Counseling Network. So now providers who want to join us and learn how to serve the homeschool community, they have to go through our training and then they're added to our directory.
Wow. What I do. Know what I'm loving from what I'm hearing so far. You fit the homeschooling mom mold perfectly. You are cool building it as you go. You're cool with making the adjustments, figuring it out. You got the strong family, but also the way your brain works of saying, like, okay, I see a hole right here. Let me just fill this up and make it a little easier for the next person in line. So I just want to give you credit for that. You are doing absolutely amazing. You fit the mold perfectly. Way to go.
Thank you.
So what has been, when it comes to HCN, what has been like the biggest eye-opening like moment that you saw there? This is a hole I didn't know was in homeschool that I need to fill.
Mental health. It's and that's originally how we started, was I was looking at just mental health providers because what I was seeing in all of the homeschool groups that I was in to kind of promote my blog and give information, that kind of led to me getting into other groups. And what I was seeing from parents reaching out, just either anecdotal or reaching out anonymously, was two things. They wanted support, but they were afraid of how to ask for it. And here's why. providers weren't understanding them at best, just giving advice that didn't really align with our value systems or with how we
Mhm.
approach our children. That's best case scenario where they got it wrong. Worst case scenario, being falsely reported to CPS or Families and Child Services, whatever that looks like in any of
My
the other
goodness.
states, for unfounded reasons. We have cases like that going on in Texas right now, and it's terrifying. So, and not to fearmonger, this is reality. To quote a friend
Mhm.
of mine who's also a provider in our network, Amanda Schenkenberger. I like to give other people shout outs.
Oh, do them all. Shout out
Great.
Amanda.
She's awesome. She's second generation homeschooler of Homeschool Family Legacy. She's a homeschool coach for moms, and Amanda is phenomenal. But I like to quote her, being second generation homeschooler. She's like, we're only one generation away of families who and parents who were really brave and faced real
Mhm.
consequences of jail time
Mhm.
and having their children taken away. So that's trauma. That's systemic trauma, and it lingers. And with that kind of trauma, you've got injury. There's no other way to say it. So now with HCN, what I want to do with as a mom, as a mental health provider, I've got one foot in both camps. So what I want to do is
Mhm.
repair, restore, and rebuild.
Love
It
it.
needs to look differently. We need permission to have the conversation. This is not taboo. And we need providers who understand us, who can not just serve us, but serve us well.
I love that.
Mm.
Now,
That's great.
when it comes to a mom who's kind of just starting in their homeschooling journey, from your own experience, but also from working with these providers, seeing what other families are dealing with, what do you think are the common flaws that they have when they start, whether it be their mentality, the way they're approaching it, a limiting belief, or whether it be finding resources? What do you think is the biggest hiccup that parents are going to face at the beginning?
You want to know kind of like what are the big obstacles or parents face when they're thinking they want to start homeschooling? What hurdles are they facing? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Basically, when they start from your own personal experience and then also
Okay.
from what you're seeing working with other people.
Oh, okay, okay. Uh-huh. My personal experience, that's hysterical, but humor is my default programming anyway. Because I have a background in public education, oh my gosh, with a first grader, if you can imagine, this is hysterical. I was really excited. Oh, I was so excited. And I had it written on our whiteboard over here. It was hysterical. From 8 to 8:50, we're going to do this. From 8:50 to this, we're going to do this. And I'm like, that lasted about 3 weeks,
Yeah.
2 weeks, maybe max. And I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Because my nature is to need something that's a little more structured, but not that structured, not that structured. I'm like, wait a minute, why am I doing this? So I think we make the mistakes, and mistakes is such an awful word, and everybody makes mistakes, and it's okay when we do, but especially for beginning homeschool parents, you
Mm.
can miss the forest for the trees very easily if you forget one thing. Academics are going to happen. Learning is natural. That's going to happen. Relationship first, academics second. We call it connection over curriculum in our house. You do not have to recreate public school at home. It doesn't, homeschooling looks like so many things. Learning happens naturally. Kids are naturally curious. Go play
Yep.
in a creek, study rocks, look at the life of a tadpole.
Yep.
Those things are
Yeah.
natural learning, and it happens, and it does, and it gets in, and it will get in better if you're moving your body and you've
Yep.
got adequate sleep and you've got that connection with your child.
Yep.
That's going to happen first. Don't try to recreate public school at home. And this next thing I would say is you don't have to know it all because you're never going to
Mm.
anyway.
Yep.
So be okay with that. If you're doubting yourself, remember you taught your child to walk, you taught your child to talk, you taught your child to hold a spoon. Algebra, which I am relearning, and I don't know who told them they could change math, but I didn't learn it this way. Thank you, YouTube, and to my spouse on Fridays when he's home, that I can Google that really quickly. But you'll relearn it, learn alongside with your child. That's okay too.
Yep.
That's okay
Yep.
too. Have a beginner's mind, be okay with that. Always learning, always growing.
And I like to, because to bring it back, we talk about, you know, don't mimic that traditional school method at home. It's a failing method. We understand people are programmed, and that's why it's probably easier for them at the beginning. But really,
Yes.
homeschooling is just moving your family forward. That's all it is. So if you pick a couple critical tasks, a day, and you cross those
Mhm.
off, you should go to sleep at night knowing you won the day. You won
Mhm.
the day. You don't, and then to bring it back to, because we're secular as well, but we both, me and Beth both have our own beliefs. And I believe that God set us up with all of the information and knowledge to solve the problems that are facing us.
Yeah,
And if we just
for
allow
sure.
that to kind of take over, we'll be able to see, oh, you know what? We're doing algebra, like I said. Well, let me kind of look over here, find it on YouTube. He gave
Mm-hmm.
us everything we need. So there's no reason to kind of question it or try to go to the human mind of it and say, well, this is what they do in school, so I need to model this. I just think that
Yeah.
homeschooling moms, and dads as well, but most of the time it's coming from the mom. They're already so passionate. They're already in the right position, the right mindset that they want the best for their kid. They have
Mm-hmm.
everything they need inside of themselves to make it successful, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do. You're right.
We really do. And especially in the day and age, we have great people like yourself, great resources, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
from when my parents were homeschooling me, you know, it wasn't the internet was just kind of like really taking form, but there wasn't really a community of homeschoolers. You know, in our local community, we had like two families that we really enjoyed hanging out with. The rest, I told my mom, like, hey, like I don't like hanging out with this kid. You know what I mean? It's just not nothing personal. We just don't, we don't do the same thing, you know? So it was
Mhm.
really hard for them to kind of get that community. Can you touch on the importance of having a community when you're going through this? Because I do think it makes it a lot easier when you have people that you can tap into.
Oh, it absolutely does. I mean, we were created for community. You spoke from faith, so I feel freely to speak from faith. We were created for a community. God literally created us to have community with Him, and then in turn wants us to do the same thing with others. But no one exists in isolation, so why should our homeschools exist in isolation?
Mm-hmm.
Community is incredibly comforting. And today, and then what am I reaching out here for my phone? I'm like, it's here, it's with you all the time. Now, this doesn't need to be your sole source of community because this can be what's projected here, especially in terms of social media, can unhealthily bring out like comparison track thinking and fear of
Sure.
missing out,
Yeah.
all of that other kind of stuff. But it is one source. It was my original source when I moved from Georgia to Texas, trying to connect. But let it be a little bit of a segue into some in-person relationships so you can get to know people. And community doesn't mean a large group.
Mhm.
It could mean a small couple of friends. Our son's closest friends, this is our 7th year as homeschoolers, are neighbor kids five houses down the street, right? And we're crazy busy because the freedom of homeschooling means we have the freedom to do certain things at certain times and homeschool at night if we want to. Our neighbors' kids are swimmers, really great competitive swimmers. They're in the pool at 5 a.m., they're in the pool at 9 p.m., right? Because they're on the national swimming team. So we get together when we can. But find your community, find your village. That you can start by looking for that on social media. You can start by looking for that in church. You can go, I found most of my community through church. Here in Texas, it's crazy hot. So most of our churches around here during the summers, they open up their playground so we can go inside and have a little bit of respite. That's where I
That's
met most of
nice.
my moms and my homeschool moms who kind of brought me into the fold of homeschooling too. But just go to a playground. When kids are little, they're like, oh, meet my new friend because they're 7. And that's how friendship works when you're 7.
Yes.
So, oh, this is my new friend. But sometimes it can take a little bit more creativity when you're getting like older, adolescent age. But still, there are opportunities around. That might be sports, that might be arts, whatever your child is interested in. The
Hmm.
point is, it might take a few false starts to find out where you fit in. Community is going to look different from everyone else. But community reminds us we're not alone. We're not meant to go through life alone. So our homeschools don't need to be in isolation.
And feel free to push back on this if you want to. I feel like your community can change over the course of
Of
your
course.
homeschooling journey, and it's okay. You know,
Yeah.
Yes.
God puts everyone in our life at the time they're supposed to be there,
Yes.
and
Hmm.
it is
Hmm.
okay if maybe your son's developing a passion for, I don't know, being a rocket scientist or something. You know, obviously that community is going to shift, and that is okay. You don't need to feel tied down to whoever. Now, if you
No.
can find someone to ride the whole path with you, that's amazing. There's nothing wrong with it. But I do think that homeschooling families sometimes they kind of box themselves in a little bit. They
Yeah.
feel like they find their group, and then like all of a sudden now we're in this little box. You know, I feel like as it's your homeschooling journey, that you should be free to walk whatever path you want to. You shouldn't feel tied down.
Yes.
And the people that really want you to succeed and the best for you are going to be happy to see you move on to something better. It doesn't mean you're forgetting about them, but I do think that your what's the word I'm looking for here? Your willingness to be moving from community to community It should be based on whatever the needs for your family are at that point in time. And like I said, feel free to push back if you think that's wrong. But that's my opinion.
No, I think that's a healthy view because that's life. Whether you're a
Yes.
public school, private school kid, or whether you're going to have different moves and changes throughout your life, you're going to have lifelong friends. You're going to have friends who are in your life for a season. So it's no different for our children. It's no different for our homeschools. When we first started out, we did like an informal classical conversations.
Okay.
And then because the pandemic hit, that sort of disbanded as an unofficial co-op. Everyone moved away out to greener pastures. Like literally, they moved. We're right outside Fort Worth. So we're closer to the metro area. They moved out for land and all these other places. I'm like, oh, I would do that, but I don't do animals well in that capacity outside of my very domesticated dog. So, we lost that community, which was kind of sad. And this was only a year into our homeschooling. So it can kind of, you grieve that. You grieve the loss of
Yeah.
changes, but it doesn't mean that there's anything less about you, anything less about them, simply
That's
because
so
life
good.
changes. That's just pivoting. That's just part of life. And a part of that is mindset. I think we get caught into this mindset that our homeschool should look like fill in the blank, whatever
Yep.
that is. And then
Yep.
we compare it to someone else's. No, you need to, for me, this goes back to identity, not who I am, but whose I am. And for me, that goes back to my identity is I'm a child of God. My family,
Hmm.
God is first in my
Hmm.
house. So that means we've also changed churches. We've had not to go down a rabbit hole too far because I will totally chase the rabbit trail right down that hole unless you pull me back into the center. But we had a huge big scandal with our original church that we attended for many, many years, national scandal. And it hit my heart so deeply, especially as our son got older when it came time for him to move out of children's church into like the adolescent groups. And I was like, no, I can't. The way this is
Mm.
supervised, the way this is handled, and even my son couldn't connect with a lot of the other adolescents that were there. He wasn't comfortable. So when
Mm.
something in your spirit says that you don't need to stay there any longer, you need to pay attention to that
Mm.
and
Yep.
you need to honor
Yes.
that.
Yep.
And
Yes.
you need to not feel guilted. You need to trust your family first, and move in the new direction. It can be very scary moving into a new direction, but walk in faith.
Yep.
Walk in faith about where you're moving to. Community will come. If you put God first and you rely on God's word as truth first, He provides. He always provides.
Yes, ma'am. And then, so when it comes to the Homeschooling Counseling Network and your personal homeschooling experience, how have you intertwined the two of them? Do you use what you're facing to make resources? How do you balance going back and forth to make sure you're getting value and also taking what you're learning from your experience and implementing it over there?
A little bit of both, in all honesty, because I'm a parent in both camps. So, because I've been in these homeschool groups for so many years, I pay attention to what it's like a needs assessment, kind of an
Yeah.
informal, ongoing needs assessment that we call it within the mental health community, where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm seeing more and more parents ask about this. This is going on. I'm seeing more and
Mm.
more parents like school choice is a hot topic right now. You're in Florida, so your program's been a little bit more established. Just coming down the wire in Texas, and boy, is it a thing. It's a thing. We'll talk about that another time. That's a whole other show for school choice. But because it is a big thing, that's the hot topic. That's what parents have questions about. So part of it is we do serve the homeschool community. So I do need to address whatever's going on, particularly in our community at that time, because I'm trying to meet the need, right? I'm trying to meet what they want and what they need. That's the purpose. And because no one else is doing it. Other than that, we like stories. We like anecdotal data. We like our providers, our clinicians, our specialists, our bloggers, our interviewers who have podcasts, our service providers. We want to know that they are our people, that they are really in there with us and that they understand us. So the best way to relate to others is to share our stories. If I've personally gone through something, I'm going to write about it and I'm going to put it out there and I'm going to say, okay, here's how I handled this, or here's how I did not handle this so well. I do that a lot because it's true. And here's how I learned from it because I want to humanize it a bit. I'm not going to show you the really pretty Pinterest side of it and then forget to pan the camera to the left so you can see that old sink full of dishes that haven't been washed yet and the fact that I haven't mopped in 3 weeks.
Yeah,
I'm not going to not show you that because it's part of it. And we
it
need
is.
to know that the
True.
good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful are all part of it, and it's okay. So
Yes.
I've seen this disconnect where there's a need. I try to provide for that. I ask families what they're looking for, and we just kind of grow and we pivot as needed based on what's needed.
I love that. Now,
David, could I jump in real quick?
of course.
I just wanted to say I was also a preemie, and that's why my mom homeschooled me, which is crazy. I've never heard somebody else say that. Yeah, yeah. I was born at 2 pounds, 2.5 ounces.
Oh, you were a
So
micro preemie.
yeah, I was very small. How, if I may ask, how big was your son?
Oh my gosh, I'm kind of, this sounds terrible. I'm only 5 feet tall, but I'm really grateful I didn't go the distance and that he was healthy. I will say that because he was
Mm,
6 weeks preemie, but that child
mm.
of mine was still 5 pounds, 6 ounces and 19
Wow.
inches long at 6 weeks early. And my due date was accurate.
Oh,
I was
Wow.
like, no wonder
wow.
I couldn't breathe or sleep or walk. But he was actually very considering God.
Good.
God is good. God is really good. But outside of developmental delays and a little bit of vision issues, he's healthy. God is
That's
good.
amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I spent some 50 days in the NICU, so yeah, yeah, my mom was like, I can't believe you did that to me. But it was
I'll tell you
actually
something funny. I'm a
okay.
preemie who had a preemie.
Oh,
I'll tell age
wow.
because yeah, I was a preemie, 2 months preemie in
Wow.
1976. So, and I was 3 pounds, 5.5 ounces. So don't know if there's any correlation, but we stopped at one. We're good.
Wow.
We're good. So yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard that before. That's really interesting. Yeah. My mom actually she had a blood clotting disorder, so that's why I was
Oh
early.
wow.
And she didn't know it until like a week before she had me. So it was like emergency at the right at the wire. But yeah, I just wanted to share that because I've never really heard anybody else say that. And they were worried about developmental delays, so she wanted me to make sure I had enough sleep and that I grew properly.
Mhm.
So she was like, I'm not sending you to school, we're going to do it this way. And it worked out. I ended up graduating. And so it's just really encouraging to hear that your son did that too. That's great.
Yes, I think that's the thing about it too, because we get so used to it does change your mindset. Kind of, David, this brings it back to you too. Having a preemie child
Mm.
changes your mindset on what a timeline is supposed to look like anyway,
Oh,
whether
yeah.
that's
My mom says
developmental
that all the
delays,
time.
whether that's education or anything. So in a way, that was probably God's way of going, oh, I'm going to set you up for this. It's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my mom says that all the time. She's like, you know what? We just can't control everything and have everything
No.
structured. And yeah, that's really good advice. I love that.
Thank you for sharing that. And you are a miracle sitting there.
Thank you.
Yes,
So is your son. That's incredible.
she is an absolute miracle in everything she does. Trust me.
Oh,
From the
David. Come
onset. From
on. Now I'm gonna
the
blush.
onset. So do you want to ask any questions before I get back in?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So if a homeschool parent is facing like backlash or dealing with anti-homeschooling comments from friends or family, do you have resources that you provide to support people in that through your homeschooling network?
I do. I have there is a free guide that I have at the Homeschool Counseling Network because, and I literally, like I talked about all the blog posts from my first blog, then on It's Only Homeschooling, that's gone. So you don't have to refer to anyone that anymore. I can't balance two things at the same time. So that blog had to go away, but I just transferred everything over to the Homeschool Counseling Network. All of the information questions, like what you've just asked, many of them that I've been asked in this interview already, these are common questions because they're common occurrences. So I just
Mhm.
started putting all of the answers to it and incorporating my personal mental health background in there. I mean, my professional background in there, and I put it in a guide. It's called Supporting Your Mental Health While Homeschooling. It's a free 100 plus page guide. It has 10 chapters in it. I'm like, you'd think I'd have these committed to memory. I don't today because I still need more coffee. But it's from anything for let's talk about mental health, importance of self-care, building emotional resilience, talking about the
Mhm.
function of feelings. They're not dangerous, they have a purpose. Finding balance, creating a healthy learning environment. The comfort of community is in there because it is a big thing. Family dynamics, where we talk about
Mhm.
establishing that connection we talked about earlier with your spouse. You are
Yeah.
teammates. And once you
Mhm.
are teammates, and if you can get your spouse on the same page, and it might mean you need outside therapy to help you with that too, as
Yeah.
a communication facilitator, once you get your spouse on that same page, I'll be honest with you, it doesn't matter what anyone else says or thinks outside of
That's
your
so good.
marriage or your home. That's your defender. That's your defender. You defend them, they defend you.
Mm.
And people are allowed opinions, absolutely, but you don't have
Yeah.
to listen to them and you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. That's
I
That
love
called
that.
setting
super.
boundaries.
That is super important for parents to understand as
Mhm.
well. Is nobody deserves that right of your explanation. and you can be graceful and let them have their opinion, but you don't owe them anything. And I think there's actually real power in being able to do that without having to explain yourself.
Exactly. And I teach parents how to do that. In this guide, I'm counting my chapters. I think it's chapter 9. It's in the guide. You think I'd have that committed to memory, but I walked into the pantry 3 times this morning. I have a clue as to what I went in there for, but I just sat down and stayed for a minute because there are snacks. But it talks about family dynamics and how to set those boundaries. Setting boundaries are hard, man. They really are, even for those of us who are trained in them and who are trained to teach others in them. Setting boundaries are hard because here's something. People who need boundaries the most are typically the ones who will respect them the least. And just because you set boundaries once doesn't mean, oh, that was hard. I worked up to that. I set that boundary. Whew, I'm done. No,
Yeah.
we're going to do this again a lot.
Yeah.
On repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. So you have to get really good at it. And you have to really be good at championing your spouse. You really do. Because this is the way it goes. This is how it is in my house. And this is so hard for many Christians too. God, spouse, children, everybody else. Full stop.
Preach it. That's great.
So then, because you have your professional background, you have the experience as a homeschooling mom, you have the experience of working in the school as well. As far as from your professional opinion, when it comes to the mental health of a kid, do you really think that homeschooling is going to provide a better space and produce a better individual than the public school can, all around mental health, not around education or anything like that? When it comes to the mental space that people operate in every day, do you think homeschooling is going to set the kid up or gives an environment to set the kid up for that more than it would the public school?
That is a loaded question. And I'm sorry, we live near an airport and a jet went by right as you asked that, but I think I got like the gist of it. I don't know if you can hear it on there, but we live near an industrial airport. What I will say about this is if you want to know the data for the outcome for how homeschoolers compare to public school children, go to NERI. Go straight to NERI. It's right there. They have a fact sheet that here's the thing. Homeschoolers are doing quite well. We're doing really, really well. And this is long-term longitudinal studies. Now, does that mean that homeschoolers aren't going to face the same life challenges that everyone else faces? Of course not. We're going to face all those same challenges. But can homeschooling buffer you as a protective factor against certain things? Of course, absolutely. Yes, the research has shown that. And a protective factor just means something else that we have in our lives that's going to help us with success and is going to buffer us against stress. That's what a protective factor is. It's the opposite of a risk factor, if you think about it that way. But in terms of connection with a parent, absolutely. In terms of family relationships, in terms of self-esteem, yes, the data is there. And NERI has the data. I didn't commit them and burst to memory because, again, pantry was in there for quite a bit this morning. Had a snack, came back out. Still don't know what I went in there for. Hope everybody got everything in their lunch when I left this morning. But you have more safety and security. You're going to thrive. Homeschool kids are more, research shows us they're more invested in their learning because they're self-directed in their learning, right? When you have freedom to make your education your own, what will you do with that freedom? What did you do with that freedom when you had the freedom to make your education your own? You started a business, right? So many homeschool kids grow up to be entrepreneurs because they think differently. They're not following, and I'm not knocking public education. Again, I believe, and this is the stance we support it at HCN, and every parent's, it resides with the parents. I will make that very clear. We support every parent's decision to support to educate their child in the way they deem fit, whether that's private school, public school, or homeschool.
It doesn't matter.
We are addressing homeschooling because nobody else is. It's the population that's not being served. But with your freedom, look at what you did. With that out of the box thinking, you kind of look at things a little differently because you've not just received one way to look at it. Does that make sense? So your outcomes are going to be a little bit different.
No, and I just a second what you said there. There's a kind of a confidence you can operate through life with if hey, my family has my back.
Right.
And it's not like it doesn't mean you're going to go off and make all your wildest dreams come true, but there's a way you can operate in the world if at the end of the day, hey, these people have my back. And when my brother and I, our business is a marine service business. So we work on yachts and boats. And when we started that, we knew nothing about boats. We were maybe on a boat 5 times. Before that, my dad's friends, you know what I mean? We grew up in the woods. So
Mhm.
people are always like, well, no, how did you like, why were you guys able just to start this business when you guys didn't grow up on the water? I was like, because growing up, it was always just, okay, if we want to do this, learn how to do it, do it. You know, it was never listening to negative feedback or you can't do that. You don't know how to do that. It was always just, if you want to do it, then figure out how to do it. And we just figured it out.
Mhm.
But then also working with my brother, you know, I couldn't think of a better partner. And my sister's
Right.
in this as well. I don't want to exclude her because she's by far the smartest, best athletic one out of all of us. But there's there's a way I can operate him because I can literally get in a screaming match with him, and then 5 minutes later we're best friends. There's nothing, you know what I mean, going on. But I do believe because we were homeschooled all our life, we had to spend time together. Hey, you know, me and Jay are fighting. Coral wants to
Mhm.
play Barbies. I don't want to play Barbies. Jay, let's go throw the football. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, so I do think that with that little protective barrier, it does set you up later in life just to have the confidence to take those steps that
Mhm.
other people don't have. Because A, you have a strong foundation with your family, and B,
Yes.
you've always been in charge of teaching yourself. It's just the way it works. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
not, I don't need permission. I don't need someone to teach me. I can figure it out if I set my
Mhm.
mind to it. So just a second, what you say there from personal experience is very, very true. Now, when it comes to the parents' mental health of it, there's nothing more stressful than being a homeschooling parent. You know, you are 24/7. You're the cook, the clean, the chef, the teacher, the principal, the taxi driver,
Mhm.
whatever. You're wearing every single hat possible a parent can wear.
Mhm.
How can parents go about to set themselves up better when they're going through that when it comes to their mental health? And what do you guys kind of suggest?
Well, I think it goes back to a lot of different things. And I know self-care has gotten a bad rap just with the term that it's there, but it's important because it's essential. And self-care looks like, well, it might look different for me than it might look for you. Like my husband and son love roller coasters. I don't need to test gravity. I know it works. And I'm using that term loosely, but what I mean is find what is your source of stress relief and make sure you build it into a routine. And I do mean schedule it and build it into a
That's
routine.
good.
This goes back to learning how, and I talk about this as well in my guide. And there's a whole chapter devoted to self care, where not only are you building it into your routine as a parent, because you have to, it is essential. So often it's an afterthought at best, especially when our children are little and they need us more. But Charlotte Mason talks about building habits, right? And the importance of building habits. Self care, like anything else, needs to become a habit. It's the first thing that we tend to knock off as parents because we take care of our children first. But here's the thing, if you make it a habit and you let your children see you making a habit, and they go, oh, okay, no, this is mom's time. This is mom's time. So then they see you taking care of yourself. Children might pay attention to what we say. They do, sure. But what are they really going to pay attention to? What we
Your
do.
actions. Yep.
And yes, and what we model for them, right?
Yep.
So if you set that time, nope, mom's not, nope, this is non-negotiable because I love my son. I love my son so much, but bedtime is still unfun with an almost 13-year-old because he's 13 and he thinks you should be able to stay up later. And I'm like, no, love you, and he wants to test that limit of like, hey guys, what are you doing? Hey guys, what are you doing? And my husband and I like to reconnect at the end of the day. He works 12-hour days because he only works 4 days a week. So we want to reconnect at the end of the day. It's important. God, spouse, child. It's just the way it goes. I know it's hard, but that's how it is in my house. So I started doing something which is probably going to be very unpopular. I know it's not very popular with him, but I'm okay with it, which is okay, kiddo. It's 9 o'clock. If you're in for every whack-a-mole moment that you get up popping out of bed to come down and infringe on mine and dad's time, I'm going to take 10 minutes back away from your free time.
I see it. I see
And
it.
God is attention. Boundaries.
I like it.
Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Does that make sense? Habits, get whatever the self-care is that works for you, incorporate that in there. Have your boundaries with other people because your time is your most valuable asset and none of us are making any more of it. So you're going to have to carve out a little bit for yourself. If you don't, it's going to come out another way in an unproductive way or an unhealthy way. You're going to have physical illness. You're going to unload on your children which I've done myself too. It happens because I'm human. But you have to, you can either pay for it up front with setting aside that time for yourself and taking those habits and making it routine, or you can pay for it on the back end when you have to go make amends to your child because you just yelled.
Yes, yes. Now, I'm gonna give you kind of a statement and a question in one here. So when it
Okay.
comes to that time for yourself, you already kind of said it. It's easy for a homeschool mom to push off for what's best for her for the needs of her child. But at the end of the day, I feel like you can't. What's the saying? Is like you can't fill a cup with an empty cup or something like
Right.
that. You have to fill yours own. So that's kind of the statement. Now, the question part is from your professional experience. Those boundaries, even the boundaries you're setting with your kids right now, I personally believe that having that structure and those boundaries is going to allow him to operate in the world more confidently because he knows the play. Okay, mom said this, she's going to take 10 minutes. If I don't, I feel like even though it's hard, you know what I mean? I'm sure you don't want to take away 10 more 3 minutes of
No.
kid, but I do feel like it's going to give your kid more confidence and also provide that structure that all kids are kind of craving. Am I right about
Yes.
that or am I wrong?
No, everybody needs boundaries because then how do you think they're going to learn to set their own boundaries later? They're going to learn it from you, right? What I'm teaching him also is this. A marriage is first. I know you don't want to get up and be somewhere on time, right? Because we're hybrid homeschoolers. So our son attends the university model program 2 days a week. And so he's got to get up and be there at 8 a.m. It was his choice, right? To attend this school. So if you're late to school, there's consequences. Translation later, if you work for someone else and you're late to work, there's consequences. You don't want to practice band today, I know, because you're tired of doing that, but you've got a competition at the end of the month. And you're not just letting yourself down with your lack of learning. The whole band is counting on you because he's a percussionist and that's the heart of the band. And everybody else has to follow their lead when they're playing. They get off beat, so does the rest of the band, right?
Yeah.
It's bigger than you. It's not just about you. So it teaches service. It teaches healthy boundaries. It teaches self-value, right? Moms, you matter. Dads, you matter. Because even though my husband will come home and do anything that I ever ask him to do the minute he walks in the door, which 9 times out of 10 is a math problem mama struggled with, I try to give him a minute. I'm like, Dad just walked in the door. Let me make him a plate. Let him eat. Geometry can wait.
I like that.
You model it. And that's how they learn. That's how they learn. And then they'll turn around and do that in their relationships later, whether that's friendships, whether that's a marriage, whether that's work. It translates.
That behavior, setting time aside for yourself. When your kid goes to college, if they go to college or if they enter into the workforce, having that time, no matter what it is that's set for you, by you modeling it, how much easier do you think it is for the kid to make that an action they take in their life compared to someone that's being constantly putting themselves second?
So you mean like work-life balance and setting boundaries with others? Yes, it's about work-life balance because as you get older, yes, we all have to work and we're created to work. Absolutely. That's one of the reasons God put us here. But if you have a tendency to be a workaholic, you're going to tend to forget about the other parts of your life, right? Work is not your life. It gives you purpose, but it is the means by which you pay for your life. Your faith in your family, your life, right? You work to provide for that. So yes, you want to do well. And even I have a tendency to be a little bit of a workaholic, but I have to remind myself, okay, let's unplug from this and let me go do this for a minute. It's family time now. Let's start our day with Bible with breakfast because that's how we start. Doesn't matter that we're rushed or we woke up late or what have you. No, that's a habit. That's a routine. That's important and that's priority. And it goes back to work-life balance, comes back to one of the mental health tips I was going to talk about later on, which I think is important, the difference between sleep and rest. Sleep is important. It's vital. We need it. Absolutely. It's as essential as water for our health. But rest is something entirely different. And it's a completely different animal, but it's misunderstood. It's discounted, and we tend to think we don't need it or to even feel guilty for taking it. Rest is sacred and it has to be protected. And there are 7 different types of it. I won't go into detail of it, but there's a great book I'll recommend. It's called Sacred Rest by Dr. Sonda Dalton Smith, where she talks about the 7 types of rest, because how do you know what type of rest you need if you don't know what type of tired you are? So rest is sacred and it needs to be protected.
I love
boundaries.
that.
That's so
Love
good.
that. And you kind of talked about the tips. Do you have any tips when it comes to mental health for the homeschooling parents listening to this?
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Well, we just talked about rest and sleep. That's vital. That's part of health, but be open to the conversation. So many parents are afraid of broaching the subject of mental health. It's not taboo. It's not, it's health. It's a health conversation. And the Supporting Your Mental Health While Homeschooling Mental Health toolkit that I have that's free, I talk about how you can incorporate it into your curriculum that's already there. You don't need a fancy separate curriculum for it. It's a conversation. It can be, do I have this over my shoulder? Let me see if I can reach it. I still have this in one of its many forms. I've had this pillow since our son was really little, giving your kids language. Right. And when I say kids, I do mean littles and I do mean tweens and I do mean teens. You'd be surprised at that rapid stage of brain development when their prefrontal lobe is really kicked into gear and they're sleeping and eating everything. I'm speaking from personal experience with my 13-year-old right now. And they struggle with finding the words. They just know the feelings are big because they're hormones with feet right now, right? But they don't know how to name it. Give them language and make it okay to talk about, right? Incorporate it into your curriculum. Make it natural, right? You're with your kid more than anyone else. So you have golden opportunities there, right? So yeah, give them language. Move and fuel your body properly. If you wouldn't put kerosene in your car, then you don't need to live and subsist on junk. Now I'm a cookie monster. My kid's a cookie monster. He comes by natural. But I, in turn, have to model through the spirit self-control
Yep.
and balance, right? We have treats, but we don't live on them. You got to fuel your body properly if you want to get out of your body what you put into it. Move your body. It's not just good for your physical health, it's good for your mental health. You learn better when you move,
Yep.
right? It allows your body to really harness its power of neuroplasticity, meaning your brain's ability to restore, to learn, and to build new neural network
Yep.
healthy pathways throughout your body. It's that lane train track, right? If you want to go somewhere else, you got to build a train track for it.
Yep.
Movement does that. Community. We've talked about community. Find your community. There's a handout in my toolkit that talks about tips to combat isolation, because one of the things we hear is that the socialization myth, if I hear that one more time, it's not that really is a myth. Most homeschoolers talk about quality over quantity when it comes to socialization, but isolation is a thing and it can happen, especially in a post-pandemic world. So there are some tips to combat that. And you touched on it a little bit earlier where you talked about trying to find the group where you fit in and how that may change. Be flexible with it. It's okay. Community doesn't have to be huge to be community, just connection. And the last thing I would say is definitely relationship first, academics second, connection over curriculum. You will learn throughout the course of your life. You will never know it all, and you're not supposed to.
No, that's not the way. If you did, I feel like our experience would be so much more boring that way, you know?
Right.
Um, okay. So I do want you to touch on, for homeschooling families, because we have all of this time and we have so much to do. You're in this conundrum of like, do this? Do I do this? Should I put more time here? How simple is it to incorporate a healthy lifestyle into your homeschooling journey? Because personally, I feel like you don't need to be a marathon runner to be healthy. You know, simply going on a walk at the end of the day, getting some natural sunlight. It's amazing little things. So how simple really is it? You as a homeschooling mom, having this nonprofits, working with homeschooling families, how simple is it really for them to bake in some sort of healthy activity throughout their day?
It's not as hard as you think because it's just a little bit goes such a long way. And it will really help your kids learn. It will help you feel better. Yes, sunlight for vitamin D, fresh air, touch grass, all of that.
Yep.
Absolutely. You need that. Even in Texas when it's 1 billion degrees in the summer. Without your humidity, you can keep that in Florida. I'm from Alabama. I'm an Alabama girl, so I'm good with the curls don't do well in humidity.
No,
So
they don't. Trust me.
I'm good with the Texas. Oh, I forgot. I don't. I'm like, now I look like Richard Simmons, which no one knows who that is anymore. But like, I can't do that anymore. But no, it's really such just a little bit goes a long way. And I've got a really fun activity in the Homeschoolers Mental Health Toolkit. It's called Roll a Brain Break. It's where you just take a pair of dice and you throw it, and depending on what it shows up, it's just something silly you can do. We have impromptu dance parties all the time. We do homeschool PE through YouTube. We do a lot of physical games where we're out moving. Even when I was teaching my son to read, to count his syllables, we would jump from one place to the next to count the syllables because
Love
movement really
that.
helps the brain. There's a
I love
mini
that.
trampoline that we'll go jump on. Just simple little things. Don't overthink it. Really don't overthink it. There's a cute little card game that we play where it's supposed to be teaching kids about textures and numbers and colors and all of the different kinds of things. We'd go on a walk around our neighborhood and look for things that match that card. Just movement, move your body regularly, consistently, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. A little bit goes a long way.
And that's actually what I was going to ask you next, because a lot of times it's easier to work it into the schedule if it's just 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, just doing something like that. And I do think
Mm-hmm.
for the homeschooling schedule, that's especially in the early days when your kids require a
Mm-hmm.
lot of your attention, that's going to be the
Mm-hmm.
best way to go about it. Just getting it in when you can. Oh, I'm feeling a little down, my brain's a little foggy. Hey, you know what,
Mm-hmm.
Johnny, let's go on a walk. Just little
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Um, okay, so when
Or
it
if your
comes,
kid's really frustrated with a lesson, don't persist. Don't persist because there is the law of diminishing returns. Stop right then.
yep,
You're not
I,
on anybody else's timetable. Get out, go do something. Go do something fun.
yep,
Come
and
back to
that
it.
is, I don't mean to bring it back to my experience, but I can only speak from my experience. And I was the kid who would be stuck at the dining room table for hours and hours and hours just to start. And then once I started, it was all easy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I think maybe around my end of middle school, early high school days, my mom was like, just go outside. Just go outside and
Mm-hmm.
come back when you're ready. And
Mm-hmm.
I would go run and play, and then I would spend all night doing my work, but I was focused on it. I wasn't sitting at the kitchen table looking outside watching the trees blow, It's just
Yeah.
so I do think that that little advice you gave right there about go free up your mind, come back. Personally, it works for me. Even today, if there's something going
Mm-hmm.
on in business that I'm stumped on, or for this
Mm-hmm.
nonprofit I'm trying to figure out, simply going for a bike ride, going outside, taking one
Mm-hmm.
of my nieces to the park, you know what I mean? Just playing with her at the park. It's little things like that allows me to free my brain back up to start operating. Now, I know you
It
talked about the
does.
mental
It
health.
does. It helps you learn. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's good. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say it does. And what I learned because of our son's diagnosis, he has developmental coordination disorder, which is a motor planning disorder. It just means his brain doesn't always communicate with his muscles where he needs to go and how to get there, if you will. We do a lot of what's called heavy work from occupational therapy, push, pull, carry, especially for young kids or when they're in a rapid stage of growth, like at the teenage years, push, pull, carry, get them physically moving. When he was little, I'd put a bunch of books in the laundry basket and just have him push it around. Just things like that. Push, pull, carry, those kinds of things. Get that jumping, right? Get that body moving. It still works because that activates our proprioception and our vestibular systems, your inner ear systems, where everything else, all of the other systems in your body are related to that from movement. But it gets your anything that crosses midline, right to left to right, gets anything that information to cross your corpus callosum, get the right brain, left brain to talk to each other. Push, pull, carry, get to moving. Movement matters.
Of course, of course. Now we're kind of wrapping up here, and I know we discussed a little bit about you showing the resources
Oh,
that you
okay.
have.
Yes.
If you could, let's do that so that way parents can have a good idea, because I think you guys are doing amazing things over there. I want to see it with their own eyes.
Okay, I would love to. I would love to. Okay, so this is our website at the Homeschool Counseling Network, and I am logged in right now. Parents can create a free parent account. I will show you. Well, if you go to our website and you go to join our network, then you will see parent account. All you have to do is log in, and everything is absolutely free. And then you will get access to all of our different resources. Here's what you will find. We have academic advising, some tips for beginner homeschools, behavior support. A lot of these our resources are trickling in a little bit slower, but we have something in here for all of these different sections, including our preferred provider directory. And what this is, these are professionals who have been through our cultural competency training, mean they understand the world of homeschooling. Many of them are homeschooling parents as well, such as Amy Bodkin. She's a former school psychologist turned homeschool parent. And we also, let's see, we have a lot of homeschool parents and family members in here as well, but this just lets you know who is in our preferred provider directory. We're working on expanding this list of professionals to all 50 states by 2028. That is part of our vision. This is Amanda I was telling you about from Homeschool Family Legacy. There might be a few people you might want to talk to in here for your show too, David, because a lot of these are homeschool parents as well and service providers. But our biggest resource is this right here. This is the mental health toolkit. Okay. And I will show you a little bit of it inside what this looks like.
Now, can homeschool graduates find a counselor through what you do, or do you not recommend that since they wouldn't be
Yeah, they
homeschool trained?
absolutely can, because
Okay.
remember, our providers are going to treat different specialties based on what they're trained in, and that's going to be adults too. Homeschool parents can come here just to, if they need help for themselves personally as adults, or
That's great.
just as parents. It's either one. We have a variety of different providers to meet their needs, if that makes sense.
That's wonderful.
Did,
Thank you.
did the toolkit show up where you can see it? Because
Yeah.
I can't see
Mhm.
what
Yes,
it says.
ma'am.
Okay, good.
Yes, it looks
Okay, this
great.
is our homeschoolers mental health toolkit, and this is our different topics that we have. Our first chapter is let's talk about mental health, and I've got all types of resources and exercises in here, from the importance of self-care, building emotional resistance, finding balance, creating a healthy learning environment, the comfort of community, a lot of what we talked about, family dynamics, including some challenges and limitations that go with homeschooling, how to change your mindset, sibling bonds, which you talked about that some
Yep.
a little bit too, David. Blood is thicker than water, but
Yep.
how you can also help manage that time if you're homeschooling more than one, but importantly, connecting as a couple, which is very important if you need to be each other's teammate when you're homeschooling.
I love the
Parenting
book
tips.
recommendation there too, the 5 love languages. I think that's
Yes.
an amazing recommendation. Good job.
Yes, absolutely. Parenting tips for mental well-being. And I talked about behavior detective. I have a fun exercise in there I'll show you in just a little bit. And then also, because I want it to be known that it is okay to reach out for support if you think that it's a little deeper than just, oh, okay, I might need to change my balance. I might need to change some habits. How you can recognize mental health struggles, because we're not exempt from that as homeschoolers. No one is really in life. And then how to, if that turns out to be a concern, how you can find a mental health provider.
That's
So this is
great.
what it looks like on the
Wow.
inside as well. How we talk about mental health. I'm going really quickly just to show you how to stomp out stigma. Let's start having this conversation in our community. Okay, how do I have that conversation? Here's how you have it with adults. Here's how you have it with teens. Here's how you have it with kids, because developmentally they're at different places for you to start that conversation. Here are some ideas for how you can integrate mental health into your homeschool. It doesn't have to be a whole separate curriculum. The importance of self-care, fueling your body, being your own conductor, laying those neural network pathways in the brain, why rest is so important, the different types of it, how we can restore it if we find we're in a rest deficit. Self-care, you talked about filling up your cup. Here are some ways that you can fill up your cup, because there's different deficits in self-care. It's so hard for me to get to all of the details in one interview because I will talk paint off a wall, but this helps it, kind of bring it back to the focus where you can read a little bit more in depth. The impact of nutrition, specifically a balanced diet, and how that impacts our brain and our mental health.
I'm loving
again,
what I'm seeing here. This is amazing.
Okay. The roller brain break. We do this with our son a lot. So this is fun as well too. Just gets the body moving, and how you can plan for your self-care. Yes, you do need to actually plan for it, or I can assure you, homeschool mamas and dads, I know a lot of homeschool dads, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen if you don't plan for it and make it a habit. Building emotional resilience, right? That doesn't mean the absence of emotions, and it doesn't mean the controlling of emotions. Emotions are meant to be managed, not controlled, right? Because if you wait, they're going to change. They're going to change. So, feelings are indicators, not dictators. We talk about that a lot. A little bit of education on the limbic system, where emotions come from, what purposes they have, because they do have a real function, right? but they still need to be managed, much like toddlers with sugar and nap time. So, how you can build emotional resilience, the feeling, thought, behavior connection. And our favorite that I have, I was going to show you this, the power of the pause. That's an activity we do a lot in our house. And one of my favorite little toys slash tools that we use in our house, and I use it for mama too. There's days when mama needs it because it's so cute to me that maybe I need a snack. Because there's a sign in our classroom that says, I'm sorry for what I said when I was hungry. That's not for my son. That's for me.
That's
I tend to
relatable.
forget. Yes, I
Ugh.
tend to forget to eat. And when both the spouse and the 13-year-old goes, did you have breakfast? Have you had anything? Have you had any water? Did you have anything other than coffee? So we use what's called the power of the pause. Just a brief pause is enough to help you kind of mentally reset before you have to engage in a behavior you might regret and then go and try to make a repair. Right?
Mm,
But this
that's
is really
good.
fun. This is a recordable button that I bought off of Amazon, and this is my son's voice. Because his voice makes me happy. So it's a
That's
reminder.
so
He doesn't
cute.
like it when I play it for him now. He did when he was younger. It's not flying with the 13-year-old lately. But I use that. So just pause for a minute, right? Find your balance. Here's how you can do that. This is one of my favorites.
Mm,
Life is about balance. Most of the time, when things are running well and smoothly and things are in balance, we don't notice. We don't notice a bit. It's when something comes along and upsets our apple cart that we're like, wait a minute, I didn't see that. Now, how
Yep.
do I pivot? So you trade in your tightrope for a teeter-totter. And this is how. I teach you how.
Great analogy there too. I love that.
mm-hmm.
Core values, remember your why. There will be days when you will threaten to put your child on a bus. I understand. So remember your values, remember your why. It's okay to have those days too. I usually just send mine to do extra laundry. Homeschool values worksheet. How to create a healthy learning environment. So I hope I'm not spending too much time on this, but your morning check-in, your emotions wheel, we talked about that. One for older kids, one for younger kids. The power of community. How to combat isolation, because it can happen. You can feel isolated in a crowded room, though, if you don't have real connection.
And just seeing this for the first time, it looks like a very easy read. It looks like a very easy read, and I think everything I've seen so far is amazing. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you. Thank you. We talked about this. You asked about how do you get people on board.
Yep.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is you
that's
start
right.
with your spouse. I start everywhere with your spouse. Always your spouse first. If you're not married, that's a different story. You get to be the main person who makes the decision. So if you're divorced, that's a different story completely. I'm not going to touch on that with a 10-foot pole for legal reasons. That's not a judgment. That's a legal disclaimer.
Yep. Yep.
But then how do you handle, I talk about triangulation. We talked about that and setting boundaries. How do you set those healthy boundaries? You have good fences. Fences are there for a reason.
That's so
Fences are
good.
there for a
I
reason.
love the visuals.
Thank you. I'm a visual learner. So I that's
Great.
my personal component here. Talk about how to change your mindset.
So
Time
important
management.
right there too. The growth and fix. So important
Yes.
for them to understand.
Yes, family bonds. I'm trying to just go through it quickly, but yes, this is absolutely free. My goal eventually is to expand this out into move your body, make it fun. If you call it exercise, I immediately don't want to do it. I'll be honest because I'm stubborn and I'm like, that's not fun.
Just
Okay,
play.
let's go on a scavenger hunt and chase Pokemon Go. I'm down. Let's go.
I
You
love
got to
it.
trick me. You have to trick me. Okay. But yeah, this is it. Love languages because yes, I love Gary Chapman. And then, of course, tips for parents' well-being. Maslow's hierarchy, if most of us are familiar with that. This is my favorite exercise. I created the behavior detective. If your child is misbehaving, there's a reason. All behavior has a purpose. So we have to kind of put on our detective hats, and with all of the other hats, we're switching.
I
But
know.
remember, we chose to homeschool for a reason. Connection over curriculum.
Yep.
Connection over curriculum. Okay, emotional intelligence, how you can teach emotional intelligence or EQ. And let's see what else. Recognizing mental health struggles. And then finally, the last one is finding a mental health provider. So I don't want to waste a whole lot of time on it, but I am proud of it.
No, and then I mean,
Great.
you can correct me if
Wonderful.
I'm wrong here, but from what I'm seeing with this, I think this would also be a great resource for around a high school age kid to kind of go through and begin to understand everything maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's only for the parents, but I think even a kid who's in high school who's maybe feeling these things, doesn't understand their hormone on feet,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Giving them some exposure with just what you have right here, I think could help them a lot as well as helping the parents.
It's possible. I haven't thought about it. Okay, I have thought about it. I haven't had time to actually flesh it out. I've got this to-do list that's never going to end because that's you would think I was a homeschooler with the way I chase every squirrel. But I do have a friend, she's one of our providers in our network, Ariva Neely. She
Okay.
is working on a homeschool mental health curriculum, which is so needed. I would love to
Wow.
do one. I'm a
Wow.
That's
homeschool parent
great.
first and a nonprofit founder second. So eventually I'll get to that. But yes, I would still say simply for liability reasons, a parent should go through this with them because it's not, it's written from the perspective of a parent. Is it
Okay.
informational? Sure,
Okay.
absolutely. But as far
Well,
as
don't listen to
actually,
me then. Don't
oh,
let the
no,
kids
no,
go
no, no,
through
no, no.
it.
There's no harm in it by any means.
Yeah.
But I always believe, especially because we choose to homeschool for a reason.
Mhm.
And yes, kids do get independence in their age as they get older, and we want that. That's the goal, right? But at the same time, there are certain things that you still need your parents' guidance on. And because this isn't written directly for them, I would say still just, if you're a parent and you want to share it with your high schooler, look through it first. I'm a parent and I read through everything before I give it to my child. So
Great
Mm-hmm.
advice. Great advice.
That is, yeah.
All right. Is there anything else on the website you would like to show us before we kind of wrap up here?
we are growing. We are growing right now. So let's see if it'll take me back. Let's see. Right now we are in 17 states as far as we have providers. We are learning and we are growing. We do have a blog. We usually release at least one article every week, but this lets you know a little bit about what's inside here. And we also, if you join our newsletter, when you get to our website, then we will email you whatever the latest updates are that we have. As far as right now, a lot of the hot topics are school choice. So we're talking a lot about that because it's new in Texas, right? It's the hot ticket. But I also have here an HCN calendar of events.
Okay.
Anytime I come across a homeschool workshop, homeschool convention, homeschool webinar, I throw it into this calendar. Like this is April.
Love
What do we
this.
have going on this week? So you can click on that. Oh, it's the Great Homeschool Convention in Ohio.
What a great
And
tool
then
for the parents too to stay
Oh, my
informed.
word, yes.
yes, exactly. So yeah, we are that this is a lot. I also have, let's see, I have a podcast. It is on hiatus. Right now, I'm focused on being on a guest for everyone else because that's what's manageable for me right now. I can talk paint off a wall. It's editing that I don't have time to do. But we
Yeah.
have a lot of interviews here with other professionals. And if there's a resource or a provider that is not listed in your state and you're looking for services, you can still email me and I will reach out to my professional community and see if I can't help you find someone. And you can go here and connect with me at my website, or you can email me at Kimberly, my name, LPC, Kimberly Bennett, Bennett, LPC for licensed professional counselor at outlook.com. And I will do my very best to help you find a provider.
Love that. I love
Great.
that. All right then. Well, if you want to stop sharing the screen so we can come on back. Perfect.
Okay.
Do you have any last words for the parents before we wrap up here?
Trust yourself. Trust yourself. You know more than you think you do. And for the things you don't know, find your community. Don't be afraid to ask for help. It is okay. You are not expected to know it all. You never will anyway. You never will anyway.
I love it. Well, Miss Kimberly, thank you so much for giving us your time. We super
Yes.
greatly appreciate it. And like I said, in the future, let us know. I want to help you guys as much as possible.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Best of luck to you guys.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
Take
much.
care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.